Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroh Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivan Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavati Paschatadishtarine He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwavan Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for the wonderful Manglacharan. Let me ask if Mataji is going to join us. Otherwise, we go ahead. Okay. Oh, she's joined. Hare Krishna, Mataji. I was just sending you.
Really sorry, slightly late. Sorry.
Okay, it's okay. Are you in India or are you back in London?
No, Mataji, I'm in India and I'll be in India for the whole of August.
Okay, so I'm so sorry. It's so late right now.
That's all right,
Still we are making this effort.
No
Thank you so much.
Apologies, I missed it last week because I had just landed on the 10th.
Yes, but at least you gave us a recording which we played and it went well. Thank you so much. And we learned a lot from that. So thank you very much for being so thoughtful. Welcome to the group, Mataji. We are reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. We are on Canto 3, Chapter 5. Chapter 5 is Vidura's talks with Maitreya, and we are on text 19. Mataji, we have just finished the Manglacharan recitation, and I hand over to you now. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji and Prabhuji. Thank you very much for the opportunity to do service. It's really nice. I actually look forward to the weekly service, so apologies I had to miss it last week. So I start my service today with my prayers to my Guruji. Without his mercy, I wouldn't have been able to do the service. My prayers to Radharani and Krishna, and I pray to them that whatever is right, they allow me to say the right things in my service today. My obeisances to all of you, to give me the opportunity to do the service. Let me start. So, Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deva Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Deshadarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Thank you, Mataji. So we are reading Canto 3, Chapter 5, verse number 13. Mataji, did you say that the verse has been read? The verse hasn't been read. Okay, so I'll just bring it up on my phone. and I can read it. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Naitach Chitram Tvaishata Padaranaya Viryatye Grihito Nanya Bhavena Yatvaya Haririshvaraha. Translation. O Vidura, it is not at all wonderful that you have so accepted the Lord without deviation of thought, for you were born from the semen of Vyasdeva. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The value of great parentage and noble birth is evaluated here in connection with the birth of Vidura. The culture of a human being begins with when the father invests his semen in the womb of the mother. According to his status of work, a living entity is placed in a particular father's semen, and because Vidura was not an ordinary living entity, he was given the chance to be born from the semen of Vyasa. The birth of a human being is a great science, and therefore reformation of the act of impregnation according to the Vedic ritual called Garbhadhana Samskara is very important for generating good population. The problem is not to check the growth of the population, but to generate good population on the level of Vidura, Vyasa, and Maitreya. There is no need to check the growth of population if the children are born as human beings with all precautions regarding their birth. So-called birth control is not only vicious, but also useless. Okay, so we see over here, now so far we have seen Vidura asking questions to Maitreya Rishi. And from verse number 8, Maitreya Rishi has been glorifying Vidura. Now, Canto 3 is this chapter 5 in Canto 3 is actually quite interesting because so far in the previous chapters, we've seen how Uddhava has been speaking to Vidura. They've been reminiscing and recollecting and remembering and exchanging talks around the Lord's very sweet pastimes. And then we come to chapter 5, where it gets slightly technical. And we see over here, and even in chapter 6 as well, it will continue to be a bit technical for the next few chapters. Where Maitreya Rishi talks to Vidura, we will see that a lot of tattva is being spoken of over here. And we need to understand that there is a reason for this, that, we are given in Srimad Bhagavatam, we are told of the Lord's sweetness, the Lord's pastimes, and yet it is also, there are also, the chapters where we are reminded of the Lord's greatness, because we can hear all about the sweetness of the pastimes, and we, want to be very close to Krishna. We want to have that personal relationship with Krishna. But sometimes if we do not understand the greatness of Krishna, the reality of who he is, the fact that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, if we forget that, and we just want to have that personal relationship, which is great. The Vrajavasis, they didn't think of, they didn't care. They didn't, even if you told them a zillion times that Krishna is the Lord, they still wouldn't believe it. Krishna would still be their friend and their, their lover or their son. but the Vrajavasis, we are not as great devotees as the Vrajavasis, so we cannot do what they are doing. So for us who are practicing Krishna consciousness, we are just, starting to be in this path of devotion, and I can only speak for myself. It is important to remind ourselves of the greatness of Krishna, of who he is. And along with the pastimes, we must also remember that tattva, the philosophy around all of this. Otherwise, there can be too much familiarity with Krishna, which might lead to offenses. And that is the reason sometimes it's said that, yes, we speak to Krishna all the time at home. There should be that unique, very, very personal relationship with Krishna, and that is the right thing. However, there should be a little bit of that Aishwarya Bhava as well. So yes, we all want to serve Krishna in the Madhurya Rasa, but there should be some form of awe and reverence as well, because we haven't reached the stage where we can have that, very, very informal Madhurya Rasa with Krishna. We need to understand the greatness of Krishna first. And so that is reminded over here, and that is what brings us to this chapter. And that is why we see that Vidura is asking all those questions to Krishna, to Maitreya Rishi. And Maitreya Rishi has just started giving his answers. And in the first couple of verses, the last verse, and in this verse as well, he glorifies Vidura. So the verse we have today has three main points and quite a few subpoints as well. The first of all is, where we see Maitreya Rishi praising Vidura. So there's praising of a great personality for another great personality. Then there is a reference to the birth of Vidura, which we have touched upon a bit earlier when Vidura came into, when we first heard of Vidura in Srimad Bhagavatam. We had discussed that a tiny bit. And the large part of our verse today is on the importance of bringing a child into this world. The samskara, what really is the true purpose of bringing the child into this world. So that forms a large chunk of our verse today. So we see the first part, we see Maitreya Muni is continuing his appreciation of Vidura, and he's glorifying Vidura. And what he glorifies Vidura with a very, very specific thing in this verse. He glorifies Vidura not by saying that, you are a great devotee and you're a very wise man, which Vidura is, and how he has been with Dhritarashtra for such a long time, serving Dhritarashtra so well, despite all the challenges that Vidura had to go through. There are so many good characteristics of Vidura. Vidura had even met Krishna. But in this particular verse, Maitreya Muni, he concentrates on one particular point. And he says that it is not at all, wonderful. It is just, it's very obvious that you are a great devotee, that you have accepted Krishna without any kind of deviation. You have this one point concentration of Krishna, and it's very, very obvious. It just had to happen. Why? Because you are born from Badarayana. And who is Badarayana? Badarayana is none other than Vyasadeva himself. And Vyasadeva is a friend of Maitreya Rishi. They're all of, they came at the same time. So he's a great friend of Maitreya Rishi. So we see Maitreya Rishi connects Vidura to Vyasadeva immediately in this verse. And so he's glorifying Vidura, and is doubly glorifying Vidura because he's also related to, he comes from Vyasdeva. He's the son of Vyasdeva. So that is the context of this verse, that yes, immediately Maitreya Rishi talks about Vyasdeva, and which takes us back to who really is Vidura. And we have heard this before, how there was a great rishi called Mandavya Rishi, who was meditating one day in his ashram. And there were some thieves who stole some things from the king's palace, and they ran. The king's soldiers were after them, and they went to the hermitage of Mandavya Rishi, and the rishi was he was in his meditation. He wasn't even talking, and the thieves thought it best to hide over there and hide the stolen things in the hermitage. The king's soldiers came and they found the stolen items over there, and they caught the thieves, and they also caught the rishi, who did not say anything. He was in meditation, he was in Maun Vrat, so he didn't say anything. So they picked up the rishi as well, arrested the rishi as well, and took them, all of them, to the court. And so the king said to punish all the thieves, he said, put them on a spear or a trident. So on the point of a trident or the spear, and that was the way to give them the death punishment. So all the thieves and Mandavya Rishi, all of them were put on that spear. The thieves, obviously, because they were sat on that spear, immediately that killed them. However, Mandavya Rishi, he was a great rishi. And the rishis, they have great yogic power. They're able to do, we've seen rishis, we see, them sitting on a bed of nails. With their great power, great yogic power, mystic power, they are able to do a lot of things. They're able to walk on water as well. We hear during the Kumbh Mela, some of the rishis with the yogic power, some of them come from other planets. Some are to attend the Kumbh Mela. Some of them, they live in far off places. They take a dip in the river or an ocean in one part of the universe or one part of even the earthly planet. They take a dip over there and they come out in the Triveni Sangam. So they are able to do a lot of things. So for Mandavya Rishi, he was still in his meditation, and he just sat on that sphere, and nothing happened to him for days. When the king's soldiers, the ministers saw that, they obviously knew something was wrong. They went to the king and they told him this was the case. The king immediately understood his mistake, came and immediately took Mandavya Rishi off the sphere and asked for forgiveness profusely from him. Mandavya Rishi didn't say anything to the king, obviously, because he didn't explain. However, he went to Yamraja, and he went and told Yamraj that you are not fit to be a Yamraj. Yamraj is somebody, you have got this position. Remember, these are all positions. They're all demigods. They're all designations, positions. And he said, you are not fit to be in a position where which looks after dharma, because dharma looks after right and wrong, and you have taken a wrong decision. Okay, why did you make me suffer when you knew that I wasn't wrong, that I hadn't stolen anything? And that is when Yamraj said, but this is the karmic reaction that you are suffering because of what you did in one of your previous births, when you were a child and you were actually pricking bugs with a pin and killing them. And so you had to suffer that in this birth by having to sit on a pointed spear. And that's when Mandavya Rishi said, but then I was in that birth, I was only a child of 5 years old. And I'm even more shocked because as Dharmaraj, as Yamraj is Dharmaraj, you should know that the karmic reactions does not apply to a child of 5. So you should have known that, but you didn't. So you did a wrong, you took a wrong decision. You're not fit to be in this position. And so he curses Yamraj to take birth in the material world and take birth in the family of a lower caste, of a Shudra. And so from there, we come to the birth of Vidura, where we see, how in the court of the Kuru dynasty, there was a death of princess who could give birth to heirs. There was no one. The princess had all died. One was one was killed in a war with a yaksha, or with a Gandharva. It was named Chitrangad, I think, and the other one was very, very ill, and he died. And so they were left with their wives. And these 3 wives, if you go back, so we won't go into all the history. It goes back to how, Bhishmadev, he forcefully brought 3 princesses, Amba, Ambika, and Ambalika, and 2 of them had to marry 2 of the princes in the Kuru dynasty, whereas one of them didn't marry, but told Bhishmadev that, she wanted to marry another king. But then when Bhishmadev took Amba to that king, the king didn't want to marry Amba because she had been kidnapped by Bhishmadev. And so when Amba wanted to marry Bhishmadev, Bhishmadev said, I can't marry. So Bhishmadev couldn't marry and couldn't give birth to any heir. Neither could the other 2 princesses who were married to the princes who had died. And so Satyavati, the grandmother, she consulted with their counselors, also Bhishmadev, and they decided to bring in Vyasdeva, who was also Satyavati's son, through Parashar Muni, to impregnate 2 of those princesses. And this was the practice in the previous ages, where if to continue with the lineage, great souls were brought in to give birth to, or to help in producing the lineage or heir to a throne or to a great family, where it required for social purposes. And it just happened that, the first 2 princesses, so they were one of them, because Vyasdeva, he lived in his hut in the hermitage, he didn't have really a very nice, he wasn't wearing something very nice. He was not very good to look at physically. So the first person, the first lady, the first princess, she got very scared, closed her eyes, and as a result, she gave birth to Dhritarashtra, who was born blind. The second person was shaking. She was just so frightened of Vyasdeva, and she gave birth to Pandu, who was very pale and yellowish. Whereas then Satyavati actually got a bit worried, and so then they brought in their maid, who also united with Vyasdeva, and the maid paid lots of obeisances, knowing that Vyasdeva was a great soul, paid obeisances, and was very happy to unite with a great person. And so from her Vidura was born. And this is what Maitri Muni is referring to. And this is what is also mentioned towards the last part of the purport in our verse today, that it is only right that for for a person at the level of Vidura, someone who was Dharmraj, someone who's, a man of wisdom, it is only right for such a soul to be born from a great father, because he couldn't have been born from any random father. He is Dharmaraj. He had to be born from someone who's great. And so great that Vyasdeva is an incarnation, is a partial incarnation of the Lord himself. So it was only fit that Vidura was born from such a great soul as Vyasdeva. And that is what Prabhupada has also mentioned in the last part. And that is what Maitri Rishi is mentioning in the first part of our verse today. It's there's nothing, that there's nothing to be surprised of. It's only natural that you are born from Badarayana. Badarayana is none other than Vyasadeva. So that is the first two parts of the verse today, praising great souls, and also where did all this comes from. We are getting into a section of Srimad Bhagavatam where we will start looking into the secondary creation, the elemental creation again. And before that, Maitreya Rishi, Vidura and Maitreya Rishi is setting the scene. And so it is being established that Maitreya Rishi is the great person whom Vidura asked questions, and it was only right for Maitreya Rishi to praise Vidura because he cannot give information as great as the creation of this universe, the secondary creation of this universe, or Sarga, as we learned in Canto 2. That is what is going to be discussed in chapters 5 and 6. He cannot give the information of such great importance to any random person. So it is being established here in this verse again that you are a great devotee, and why shouldn't you be a great devotee? Because you come from the great Vyasdeva. So that is the first two sections of this verse. And then the verse actually speaks about the most important part, and which Prabhupada has also elaborated quite a bit in his purport, of bringing a child, the importance of bringing a child into this universe. And they have mentioned the word semen in the verse itself. It is mentioned. So in the verse itself, Maitreya Rishi mentions the word virya. Virya is nothing but the semen that comes from the father. And it's mentioned in a verse, and Prabhupada has expanded that further in the purport. And so why is it so important? And it's really, really important, especially as we come into Kali Yuga. We day by day, we see how very important it is to remember the true significance of bringing a child into this world, especially as we see in the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna talks about people with divine qualities and people with demoniac qualities. And as Kali Yuga progresses, we see more and more people, more and more souls who are showing characteristics which are related to very, very demoniac features, doing things that are very, very of a demoniac characteristic and far away from anything divine. And demons did not look, demons don't look different. They are same. We don't know who's a demon, who's of divine characteristics. Sometimes it is the same inside. The characteristics of both are within each jiva, each person. So it becomes more and more important to understand why right from the conception of a child, why it is so important to instill that divine characteristics into a soul, or into a child, to be able to come into this world. Now, so we go back to the Virya that is being mentioned in the verse, and people nowadays, Prabhupada expands, and I have to really pay my obeisances to Satya Gaura Chandra Dasa Prabhu, from whose teachings I understood, or I am trying to learn. I learned a lot from his teachings as well, around, especially around this verse, and also around, how important it is to, to have a child in this world. So people nowadays, they really do not understand the value of the virya, or the semen. But they do not really understand the potency of a semen. Now, the semen is what carries the soul. So we understand that Mahavishnu, during annihilation, so we know right at the beginning, some of the souls defected from the spiritual world. They came into this material world, and then they're all in the body of Mahavishnu, Karnadaksha Vishnu. Okay, during annihilation, total annihilation, they just go into the body. And then when creation starts again, Mahavishnu breathes. First of all, Lord Brahma is created, the body of Lord Brahma, and then the soul of Lord Brahma is put into that body of Lord Brahma, a soul who is fitting enough to be able to take up the position of Lord Brahma. Is given to that position, for that position. So first of all, Lord Brahma is created, and then we say how from the raw materials provided by the Lord Brahma creates 8.4 million different species or different types of bodies. And then when Mahavishnu breathes out, all the souls, they come out and they take up, based on their karmic balance, based on their desires, they take up the bodies of different species. And this happens, after every annihilation and then creation again. So so the Lord rightly says in the Bhagavad Gita that I am the seed-giving Father. So the seed, or the soul, comes from the Father. So even when we translate that in the material form, in the human or in the jivas, even in animals, even in any of these species, we see the soul is carried by the Father. It is put inside the body of the Father. And which part of the body of the Father? In the semen. So in the virya. So the soul is put in the semen of the Father by divine divine permission. Okay. Now, not everything, modern science just says it's fluid. It is not fluid. It's not just fluid. Okay, so we see the semen or the virya of a father. Not all the semen carries the soul. Some of them carries the soul. Okay, some of them carries the soul, some don't. And so it is being said that, it's just sad that it is treated in such a matter-of-fact way nowadays. According to Ayurveda, it explains the various stages of producing the semen. So after we eat our food, it gets converted into various items, various bodily tissues, various minerals in the body, blood, etc. Okay, after it all comes from the food, because in the human form, the food is the raw material. That is what keeps us alive. So that food is then transformed into various things. Some from for the bones, for our muscles, blood, tissues, etc. And it says that 40 of such blood molecules turn into just one drop of semen. 40 of those blood molecules. And the Vedic culture considers life to be very, very, very sacred. And so the Vedic culture says that this semen is the carrier of life, because the Lord puts the soul inside, in the body of the Father, but inside the semen. So the semen is the carrier of life. So it's a very, very sacred thing. It's not just any random fluid. It's very sacred. And so that is why we see even in Srimad Bhagavatam, even in the verses of the Vedas, in a conversation between two great souls as Maitreya Muni and Vidura, the Virya is mentioned, because it's not just, just any fluid or any liquid. So Vedas say that the act of placing the life and bringing the life into the universe, it's considered to be extremely sacred. And so without understanding the importance of virya, or the semen, people shouldn't unnecessarily waste it or take it as a very, very not a very important thing. People should understand the importance of it. And so here it's mentioned over here how Vyasdeva, the powerful father, has given birth to Vidura, and so Vyasdeva's virya is being glorified in this verse, in the verse we read today. And Vidura himself is the powerful living entity. He's Yamraj himself. And so his soul, it's being said that Vidura's soul, and we see how they have actually turned everything around, how the Vedas see everything in a different way. The Vedas are saying that because Vidura was Yamraj in his previous life, and it was only fitting to give him a very, very, elevated father, Vidura's soul took shelter in the virya of Vyasdeva. So it's not just, Vidura was born from Vyasdeva. It's not just a simple sentence as that. It is Vidura's soul took shelter in the semen in the virya of Vyasdeva. And there's a whole significance. There's a reason as to why that happened. And that tells us why, not just the video is so powerful, but why the whole act of placing life and bringing a life in this universe was so important, because it signified purification. Purification of, the entire process is around purification. One great soul bringing in another great soul, thought to be, and when that child is born, that child should be responsible for bringing in other purified souls, who in turn will give birth to others' glorious souls. And that is how society should be. Okay, so purification is one of the great reasons as to why we should be remembering this. And then what does the verse talk about? Or rather, Prabhupada mentions the samskara, the Garbhadana samskara. And the Garbhadana samskara is nothing but the samskara of conception. So in the Vedic rituals, there are 16 samskaras, starting from the Garbhadana samskara, and it goes on to, when the child is born, even before the child is born, there are 3 samskaras, when during the 7th month, when the Lord comes and gives darshan to the fetus, there is the samskara. Then, as the child grows up, and then right till the end, which is Anteshti, the very last samskara. So there are 16 samskaras in the Vedic culture, but the first one is the Garbhadana samskara, which is when the child is, it's the conception of the child. And so what is it? It's the act of placing life from the father into the mother. And we see the mother's womb is the place where the child grows up. So the father carries the soul, places it into a house, into a home. And the mother's womb is the home which nourishes the child to grow up. And if you think of it, how scientifically everything has been named. So the entire universe, our entire universe, what is the shape of our universe? Our entire universe, it's oval, isn't it? It's egg-shaped. Right, so we are talking about the mother's eggs as well. So we are talking about a whole womb, a big womb. Okay, so in Sanskrit, what is the name of egg? How do we call egg in Sanskrit? Anda, isn't it? Anda. So the whole creation, the whole universe. Who creates the second? Who's in charge of secondary creation? Lord Brahma. So the entire universe, the secondary creation, is created by Lord Brahma. So this whole universe, so it's the place where the Father has given the souls, and the souls are resting in this place. And who is given, remember, we are all Prakriti. Even Lord Brahma is, everybody's Prakriti. There is only one Purusha, the Lord himself. Everything else is Prakriti. So Lord Brahma creates that resting place for the souls. Okay, and so the entire universe is called Brahma Anda, Brahmanda. Yes, similarly, the mother, and if we can bring it down to the very minute details of a mother, so the mother's egg, that is the mother's womb actually, is where the individual soul from the semen of the father takes shelter and then grows up. Okay, and this samskara of transferring of the soul from the father to the mother and the conception of the child, that is called Garbhadhana Samskara. And in the olden age, again, in the Vedic tradition, it is glorified because it was a very public event at the time. There was nothing secret about it. A very public event which was done to declare to the world that they will now, the husband and wife will now, they're planning to unite to bring a good soul into this world. There's nothing to hide about. There was glorification, there were pujas done, ceremonies done to ensure that everything is done in a very, very ritualistic way to please the Lord. So in the village, in the places where this samskara was done, everyone would come, people would come, astrological calculations were done, prepared, and even dates and times of the union was done. And we can't even think of such things nowadays, but we are talking about Satya Yuga in the Vedic times. Now both the husband and the wife, they prayed to the Supreme Lord at the time to bring an exalted soul through them into this world. Okay, not just any soul, but an exalted soul. And that is what they prayed for. And then the people who came to the function, they would bless the couple and they would bless them to bring a good soul into this world. So the whole focus of the samskara was in bringing a great soul, a good soul into the world. That was the focus, to bring a good soul in the world. And Prabhupada says in the purport that one should really plan to bring such good souls as Vidura or Maitra into this world. They should bring, bring at least human beings, as Prabhuji was saying. But we don't think, people nowadays have forgotten to think in such ways. They don't think what kind of a child they are bringing in, a good soul or a bad soul. So they might just want to bring in a child, but what the consciousness of a child is, and the fact that the consciousness of a child is built even before, just from conception, that's not even thought of even before conception. Okay, it is not that souls are brought into a parent's or a child is brought into a parent's world, again, very much based on their karma. Okay, you have some parents having really good children, some parents having not so good children, some parents having, who would take good care of them, others who would just really, really ill-treat their parents. Or maybe a child grows up with lots of problems, and the parents have to take care of that child right from the start. So all of that, this doesn't happen randomly. This happens because of a reason. And so during the samskara, the parents, they actually pray, and they're also blessed by the others, so that an elevated soul enters into the semen and then is transferred into the womb of the mother. And the focus, we are told, is not on sense gratification of the individual selves. The focus was to bring in a good soul. Okay, and there was no accidental pregnancy at the time. We have so many accidental pregnancies nowadays. There was no unknown pregnancy or trick pregnancies. Nowadays, there's even trick pregnancies. We see so many stories nowadays where, people, they use the virya or the semen in the wrong way, either to, for emotional blackmails or and we see such horrific stories in the news nowadays, or, individuals wanting to take advantage of other people, control systems, or the other way around, where people are impregnated forcefully, and all such horrific things happening. So there wasn't such kind of trick pregnancy or accidental pregnancies at the time. There was no pregnancy for us for a reason, for a materialistic reason. Oh, I will, I just want to have a baby, or it might give me material wealth or some kind of material satisfaction. Bringing a child into the world was not a business, was not not some kind of barter. Bringing a child was an act of purity, an act of service to the Lord, because you're bringing in a good child into the world. So the focus was on the child, and the focus was not using the child, which happens a lot. Not all. This is probably only a very small fraction that happens, where, for the wrong reason, a child is brought into this world. But the majority, we would still like to think that it doesn't happen in majority of cases. But in that small percentage, it still happens, where pregnancy is used in the wrong way. And so the focus wasn't on the child, but the focus was not using the focus was on the child, and the focus wasn't on using the child to serve one's own purpose. So both the husband and wife, they willingly focused to bring the child into the world, which is contrastingly different from the way the modern world thinks now. And so this is what a spiritual family planning was. So right from the Garbhadhana Samskara, they planned when to bring a child and why to bring a child. And it also makes us focus on, and I've just realized quite a few things to cover, and there's only 10 minutes left. Would you mind giving me 5 extra minutes? Because I don't think I'll finish in 10 minutes. I'll rush through this. it also brings the focus onto, how there is this difference between love and lust, and where where love, true love, as we see in the spiritual world, where love is selfless, ahaituki apratihata, as we see in the Bhagavatam, where it tells us, teaches us once again that love is the union of body and soul, and it's a beautiful union of both body and soul for the right purpose, not for just materialistic sense gratification. Now, the next thing that we are pointed at is that bringing a child in this world. Why does Vidura? Why is it important that Vidura was born from Vyasdeva? Because bringing a child into the world is a great responsibility. Vyasdeva told Satyavati that, look, the first two children are not going to be perfect. One is going to be blind, one is going to be of ill health. And it's important that we bring a good soul into the world. But and so that is the reason they sent the maidservant. So because it's a great, great responsibility, bringing a child into this world is of a greater responsibility, even greater than marriage. Marriage is meant for bringing, marriage, at least there are two adults. And marriage is not just for, satisfying one's karma or a lust. Marriage is a bondage of body and soul. That is constantly being told to us in Srimad Bhagavatam, throughout Srimad Bhagavatam, whether it's through Tattva, directly, indirectly, it is being told to us that, it all goes back to Radharani and Krishna, the union of these two divine personalities. Now, nowadays, it is quite perverted. Again, we can't generalize it, but it does happen in a perverted manner in a small fraction. But we've seen examples of how in the Shastras, there are lots of examples how husband and wife, they performed severe austerities to bring a great soul into this world. And why? Because they wanted to be in the right consciousness, and they wanted the soul to have that right consciousness as well. So both the father and the mother used austerity, as we have seen in the past, to purify their consciousness before the Garbhadhan, before the union. And we've seen how Devaki and Vasudeva, Jagannath Mishra, Sachimata, the parents of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even Yashoda Mother, Nanda Maharaj, they all performed great sacrifices and austerities in their previous lives. And as a result, they got the Lord as their child. We see the case of Ravana. We see what happened with Kashyap Muni and Diti and Aditi. So Kashyap Muni, he had two wives. Aditi, who was very, very, again, she gave birth to all the demigods. And then Diti, she got very envious, and then she went, and she was one evening, she was just full of lust. She went to Kashyap Muni and she wanted she demanded for a union immediately. Now Kashyap Muni he didn't want to. He said it's the wrong time of the day. It's the wrong time. It's evening time, and evening time, that is when Lord Shiva actually goes around the world with the ghosts and yakshas and, with all the spirits. It's the wrong time of the day. But Diti did not agree to that, and there was this forceful, and then Kashyap Muni, he overcame by lust, and they united, and we see because it was an inappropriate union where the father was not in total agreement. What was the result? The result was that Diti gave birth to demons. And that is what happens, and their consciousness is very, very fallen. It's called Varna Sankara. So where children of wrong consciousness are born. because there was some problems in the consciousness of the parents. Either one of them did not agree to it, or they were in the wrong mood, a totally wrong reason. So that is where there is the huge chance of bringing in children who are of demoniac characteristics. And we see, even in Ravan and Kumbhakarna and Vibhishan, three brothers, the first two brothers born as demons, because their mother, Kaikeshi, was of a demoniac, belonged to a demoniac family, whereas their father was a sage. Now, the mother actually troubled the father a lot, especially during the first two pregnancies. She was demanding, she was very demoniac in her characteristics. And we see Ravan and Kumbhakarna born. However, she realized her fault. She realized that her husband was a sage, and she changed her ways. And so we see the next son, Vibhishan, was born a great devotee. So the consciousness of the parents are so very important, and people do not realize that nowadays. And so this accidental children or forced children, or where, both parents don't agree, that is just not right. Not for the parents, not for the children, because nobody can predict the future. Nobody can predict what consciousness that child is being born with, because the starting has been wrongful. Yes, the child might be very good, but there is no guarantee to this, because Shastras tell us that if the parents are of not of the right consciousness, there is every chance of the child not being born with right consciousness. And also, the even worse, the child may be born with demoniac characteristics. And so parents, we are told, play such a very big role in bringing a child in, or, during conception, being very, very, very careful when they are wanting to bring a child into this world. And so, for example, and this was, and very, very quickly, this was one of the concerns of Arjuna. If you remember, in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna mentions to Krishna that, look, so many soldiers will be killed, so many fathers would be gone, and the mothers will be left. People might take advantage of those women. Or the women might actually become very, very fallen, and they might just randomly unite with people. It might happen both ways. Men might take advantage of the women, or the women might actually, misuse their body in different ways. It might happen in both ways. But what would be the result? The result would be, because either the woman or the man or both of them would bring child with the wrong consciousness, the world will be full of children with demoniac characteristics, wrong characteristics. And so the culture, and in the purport today, we see Prabhupada mentions the word the culture. The culture of a society will be destroyed. The culture actually comes down from generation to generation to generation. If it is not maintained, it destroys society. The world is nothing but hundreds and thousands or millions of these families, these units together, starting with the mother and the father. If the mother and the father is faulty, if there is fault right at the beginning, that whole the unit will collapse. And that increases and increases and increases, and it covers the entire society. So we are talking about collapse of the entire society, collapse of the entire universe. And that is why we see, as Kali Yuga progresses, with change in consciousness, with fallen consciousness, with, birth of children who are born with wrong consciousness because they were, again, the parents might have had wrong consciousness. This is leading us towards a society which is which is very different to a society, say, in Satya Yuga. And so Prabhupada says, and I'll conclude here, Prabhupada says that unfortunately in modern society, such things are not thought about. People don't even have the time to think about that. Okay, everything is dependent on either satisfying their own physical senses or meeting the needs of a society. Yes, society requires that we should have a child, so let's bring in a child. But the thought behind why the child should be born, should be brought, how the child should be, how the union should happen. Parents, there is the chance of not taking full responsibility around that, and that is the reason we see the world is coming towards the more and more decline. The world is going towards decline. So parents, and I'll end with this sentence. What we are told, the summary of this verse is that parents should take responsibility of the children. In what way? Why is it again important that Vidura was Vyasadeva's son? What happened to Vidura right at the end? He was young Raja. He came, and then he was liberated. He went back to Godhead again. Okay, his soul. So parents should, right from conception, should take the responsibility of the children, not to bring them up, but to ensure that they, at the end of this material life, they are delivered, that they do not get stuck in this material life and be stuck in this continuous cycle of birth and death, lifetimes after lifetimes. That is something that parents shouldn't stop. So every single time parents think about bringing a child into this world, they should think that this is a child I am bringing in with full consciousness, wanting a child with a good soul, and the purpose is for me to ensure that this child never again comes back into this material life, but this child goes back to Godhead. At the end of a successful material life, the child goes back to Godhead. And parents should want children like Prahlad Maharaj as their son, like Vyasadeva as their son. And that is what we are being reminded over here again in this verse. And that is what Maitreya, and that is the reason Maitreya Muni refers to the source right from the start, the virya of Vyasadeva, and just how important that is. And the fact that, in modern times, they just say it is just a fluid and a birth of a child is just union, it's just chromosomes. No, it is not. It is not. The world did not start with just a big bang. There was a reason. There's a reason. There's a whole planning. Just as there was a whole planning by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in creating this entire world, there is the whole planning of how one should bring a child into this world. So with that, I conclude my discussion here. If I've made any mistakes, please forgive me. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you so much for today's session, and so appropriate, and makes us think backwards, in the sense that why did this universe, why is it in being, and how was it generated? So thank you for that, and I open it up to any questions or comments. I know we have exhausted our time, but if there are any burning questions, kindly unmute and ask your question or make a comment. Okay, there are no questions or comments. I think It was an excellent class. I request Eastern Prabhu. Prabhu, are you able to end the session for today? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for the wonderful discourse today. At least we understood the sacredness of life and how life should be taken seriously, not just whimsically or just as a thing in life, and how the 16 samskaras are so important in upbringing the right consciousness of a child, right from conception up to the time they are leaving the material world. And I really like the finishing statement you had given about how parents should have a very good consciousness of bringing up their children, not just giving them birth to them and leaving them in this material pool of illusion and misery and the treachery in this world, but also giving them the right instructions and knowledge in perfecting themselves and purifying themselves to going back to Godhead, liberating them, not just leaving them in this world. Yeah, I really enjoyed the session today, though I was a bit late, but I still grasped something. With that, I will love to request each and every one of us to unmute and chant one round of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra in the glorification of Her Grace Panchali Kar Mataji. Let's unmute.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna
Hare
Krishna, Hare
Hare,
Hare,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Hare Rama, Rama
Rama,
Rama,
Hare Hare.
Vanchakapatarivyascha Kripa Sindhu
Vanchakripacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Thank you, Prabhujis and Matajis, for giving me the opportunity to do service. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Her Grace Panchali Kar Mataji ki jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Grantraj Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai. Thank
Jai.
you, Prabhujis and Matajis. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Mataji, just 1 minute.
Sure,
Jai.
Mataji.
Nanta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki
Jai.